Best motherboards for AMD Ryzen 5 7600X in 2023. The wait is finally over and AMD has launched the brand new Ryzen 7000 series of CPU based on the Zen 4 architecture. If you are lucky enough to get your hands on a Ryzen 5 7600X early, then you will need a competent new motherboard to go along with it. For more information, I have links product in description. Make sure you check it out. Like the video, comment, don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started. Number 1. MSI MEG X670-AC. Claiming our top spot is the MSI MEG X670-AC, which is second in line among MSI X670 options, just behind the ridiculous X670 godlike. The MEG X670-AC targets the upper mid-range of the market and is quite simply one of the most complete motherboards on the X670 platform. It is our choice for the best overall motherboard for Ryzen 5 7600X. Even though the Ryzen 5 7600X is not a very demanding CPU in terms of power delivery, it helps to have a robust VRM system on your motherboard. The 22+2-phase VRM of the MEG X670-AC is probably overkill for the Ryzen 5 7600X, even with Precision Boost Overdrive enabled. You can try your hand at manual overclocking as well without worrying about any limitations. Number 2. Gigabyte X670 AORUS Master. If you are looking for the best of the best, consider the Gigabyte X670 AORUS Master for your Ryzen 5 7600X CPU. It is a premium X670 motherboard that is not only good enough for your Ryzen 5 processor currently, but will also provide you with a strong platform for future upgrades should you see fit. The Gigabyte X670 AORUS Master is our pick for the best premium motherboard for Ryzen 5 7600X. Under the massive VRM heatsinks, we find a 16+2+2-phase power delivery system that is capable of handling any Ryzen 7000 series CPU. Even on overclock settings, you can certainly play around with manual overclocking and voltage tuning on your Ryzen 5 7600X, and the board won't even break a sweat. Gigabyte has cooled the VRM components with two massive heatsinks that are connected through a heat pipe. In the AORUS Master, you can see some exposed aluminum fins just under the I/O cover, and that gives you an idea of how powerful the cooling system really is. Number 3. MSI MPG X670 Carbon Wi-Fi. MSI MPG or performance gaming lineup of motherboards is usually targeted at gamers who shop in the mid-range of the product stack. The MSI MPG X670 Carbon Wi-Fi is an ideal match for your Ryzen 5 7600X CPU from a value perspective. Not only do you get a lot of high-end features, but you also get a very decent VRM layout that rivals more expensive motherboards on this platform. Speaking of the VRM, the MSI MPG X670 Carbon Wi-Fi packs an 18+2-phase VRM with premium 90 power stages. Keeping numbers aside, this power delivery system is incredibly robust and can handle your Ryzen 5 7600X CPU with ease. You can even overclock it to your heart's content, as this board is our pick for the best overclocking motherboard for Ryzen 5 7600X. MSI has not ignored the cooling aspect either. The multi-piece aluminum heatsinks over the VRM keep them cool during extended loads, which is required for long-term reliability as well as efficiency. Number 4. Asus TUF Gaming X670 Plus Wi-Fi. Moving down the price bracket, we have the Asus TUF Gaming X670 Plus Wi-Fi. The TUF Gaming series from Asus has been a fan favorite for a while now, and its selling point is the price-to-performance ratio. The X670 variant of the TUF Gaming sits in the mid-range of all X670 motherboards. Therefore, it is our pick for the best mid-range motherboard for Ryzen 5 7600X. Asus has gone ahead and installed the 14+2-phase power delivery system on the TUF Gaming X670, which is a very respectable setup. For Ryzen 5 7600X, you don't really need anything more robust or premium than this VRM setup. Asus has also taken care of the cooling aspect by installing two large VRM heatsinks, with a cool design as well. There are not a lot of compromises in terms of features either. You get the standard networking suite of 2.5 GB LAN and Wi-Fi 6E, while the storage is handled by 4 M.2 slots. Sure, only a single M.2 slot is capable of PCIe 5.0 speeds, but that's certainly not a deal-breaker by any means. The rear I/O is packed with high-speed USB ports as you would expect, and many of them. Number 5. Asus Prime X670 PRO Wi-Fi. Asus's Prime lineup of motherboards is synonymous with budget offerings, But this time the ASUS PRO X670-P Wi-Fi takes a slightly different path. It uses the premium X670 chipset instead of the X671, unlocking more features and better overclocking potential at a relatively affordable price point. On the subject of CPU overclocking, you can comfortably overclock the Ryzen 5 7600X manually on this motherboard if you so desire. The 14+ two-phase power delivery system can handle any load you throw at it. Within reason, the VRM cooling is also quite decent, although it could have been better with a few tweaks here and there. Number 6. Gigabyte X670 AORUS Elite AX. The Gigabyte X670 AORUS Elite AX is the most basic offering from Gigabyte as of the time of writing. It uses the X670 tier of the chipset instead of the X670E tier, but that really does not make a lot of difference when paired with a mid-range CPU such as the Ryzen 5 7600X. On this motherboard, Gigabyte uses a 16+2+2 phase VRM design, which is perfectly fine for the Ryzen 5 7600X. You can even play around with manual overclocking or precision boost overdrive on this board. Sure, the VRM cooling could have been a bit improved, but it is certainly not a deal breaker. We get the standard suite of networking features with a 2.5 GB LAN port as well as Wi-Fi 6E, and the storage is handled by 4 M.2 slots. Only one slot out of the 4, however, is wired for PCIe 5.0 speeds. The rear I/O is pretty standard, although we would have liked to see more display ports. Number 7. MSI PRO X670-P Wi-Fi. The MSI PRO X670-P Wi-Fi is our last pick of the day, but it is still a very competent motherboard for your Ryzen 5 7600X processor. Sure, it does not have the bells and whistles of the other competitors on this list, but it has a comparatively low price tag which tilts the balance in its favor. MSI has installed a decent 14+2 phase VRM system on this motherboard, which is good enough for the Ryzen 5 7600X even while overclocked. You can even run more demanding Ryzen 7000 series CPU on this board at stock settings, and the power delivery system will be able to handle it. The VRM cooling could have been improved a little, however. For a budget-oriented motherboard, the feature set is not bad at all. We would have liked to see a few more USB ports on the rear I/O, but the addition of the USB-C display port is also a unique touch that balances it out. The storage and networking features are what you would expect from a mid-range X670 motherboard.